Hey everybody, welcome back to the Quest for the Bestest. It's the podcast from Backlot Banter where we review every single Palme d'Or winner, and today's Palme winner is the film Pelle the Conqueror. That would be a Danish film, so a little immigrant story. I'm excited to talk with you guys about it. It's from 1987, mind you, directed by Bille August, starring Pelle Hvenegaard, eponymous actor and character title, and Max von Sydow in the main two leading roles. Very curious to hear what your thoughts are, because this was a little longer, a little bit more of a sit and sip kind of movie as opposed to the last two 90-minute bangers that we had. But though, in case you forgot, I'll just roll right into it. The 90-minute banger we had last time would be the Dardenne brothers film Rosetta from 1999. That got a 7.9, putting it at spot number 22, right below Amour and above The Ballad of Narayama. So there you have it. I feel like Narayama, There You Have It could go together, but not quite. I didn't string the syllables fast enough.
That is now, for you, the listener, to figure out. You figure that one
Insert
out.
joke here, you know.
Mad Libs joke Quest edition.
Sure. Abram, the
film was good.
I am going to ask you a very challenging question right now, because I think I might know the answer. Any word from any commenters in the field?
Yes, actually, yes. We have a wonderful comment here. It's not on Rosetta, it's for the other 90-minute banger you're referring to, which was Hvenegaard, which we watched 2 weeks ago. The only Palme d'Or winner from India. And we got a really great comment here.
I did see this. This is great.
Yeah, from Dave3267, who says, I can't believe how timely your video is. I was just at my library last week and just randomly checked out a dual disc set of French and Japanese versions of The Lower Depths. I then learned of this Hindi movie that was said to be inspired by a Hindi novel that was inspired by the Gorky story Lower Depths, Hvenegaard, and watched it in Hindi, which I don't speak. Glad to hear your discussion in English. A couple of comments regarding the parts you said were difficult to like. First, the film was presented at the festival without the music numbers when it won the Palme d'Or, so they were aware that Western audiences weren't a big fan of mixing serious plots of music. Harkens back to a Greek chorus type idea. Also, while reading Gorky's original book, The Lower Depths, the characters were hard to like at first. Same in the two adaptations I just watched before finding your show. Kurosawa's 1957 Japanese version and Jean Renoir's 1936 French version, which brackets this 1946 reimagining of perhaps the same story. You also noted the importance of the community in Hvenegaard. In all three films, the community spirit kind of grows on you, and each person begins to show different facets of the community and are kind of archetypes. Since The Lower Depths were written by a Russian, there may be more of a cultural emphasis on the group than the individual, which would carry over into Indian sensibility.
Sure.
All in all, I like this version for its optimism and inspiration that reflects back on us, the audience, instead of having us vicariously triumph through an actor. The other two films had the community stuck in limbo. Thank you so much for reviewing this film so thoughtfully. Thank you for that very, very thoughtful comment. I had no idea that this was one of many adaptations of this story. So I really am excited to hear that there's a Kurosawa adaptation. Might have to check that one out.
Yeah, really.
And Renoir. It's crazy.
I mean, just the perfect, the peak sort of comment that we'd like to get on this show.
Someone we don't know. Someone who found a rare episode of Quest. Like that episode's not going to be watched that many times.
I did have to laugh a little bit at the opening line. Is what a timely review is. Like, if there is one thing that a review of Hvenegaard is not, it is timely.
But to that particular person,
it is, of course.
Mayhaps.
And plenty of knowledge and context that we learned about for the first time from that commenter. So thank you so much.
It's also great because, like, it just shows that we're not alone, you know? I mean, like, just in like a social sense. We're not the only ones that are, like, curious about
in the
this.
entire world. Yeah. We have some fellow cinephiles out there in the audience that do filter their way through the algorithm to find us. Let's give them something more to chew on. Let's talk about Pelle the Conqueror. How about?
Yeah.
You best be hungry.
Yeah, they must be. I think a lot of people were hungry a lot in this movie. Tanner, what happens in Pelle the Conqueror?
In Pelle the Conqueror, we follow our two primary characters, a young boy named Pelle and his quite old father, Lasse. They immigrate from Sweden to Denmark in the 1850s in search of work, greater opportunity, things of that nature. Where they find themselves is a a farm, a large farm, or yeah, I guess we want to call it that, a large tract of land that, there's animals and crops and things of all sorts,
like a farm.
all owned by, exactly, like a farm, all owned by this rich guy named, hang on, I have his name here, Kongstrup.
Kongstrup!
You have to yell
Yes.
it whenever you say it.
There are a great many workers and their children who also work on Kongstrup's farm. And Pelle and Lasse find themselves sort of at the low end of the pecking order there. As immigrants, they are often teased and abused by the other workers and the foremen on site, the rich owners themselves. And it's really just a coming of age immigrant story in which Pelle learns the trials and tribulations of the world, the unfairness of it. We deal a lot with class and, if you can believe it, lots of sexual politics going on in Pelle the Conqueror as well. Some uncomfortable topics broached as well, but it's pretty intense. It's sort of like a immigrant epic, I guess, if we want to frame it that way.
Who wants to go first? I'm looking around at these friendly faces. Tanner, since you gave us such a good synopsis there, you can go first. You haven't gone first in a couple weeks, so you get the chance.
Do you try to cycle, Timo? Do you like remember?
I do. I vaguely. It's vibes based remembering,
Well, no, it also is like you just edited last week's episode like 2 hours ago.
Yeah, so I know it's pretty fresh who I asked first.
Yeah. So I like this movie quite a bit. I think there's a lot to like about it. Similar to the other Bille August film that we reviewed a while ago, The Best Intentions.
Is that how it's supposed to be pronounced, by the way? Bille?
I don't think I have to review.
In the opening credits for this, pronounced Billy.
In the opening credits for this movie, was there a second I before the E? That's what I think. I think it might be Bille. I don't know. That's just an assumption. And maybe it was slightly Americanized at some point. Maybe he dropped in the extra vowel at some point. Anyway, I liked Pelle the Conqueror more so than The Best Intentions. I think it has some much broader intentions, if I can say that. I think it has some more easily accessible emotional stuff going on in it. You make a young boy the main character of your movie. You put him through trials and tribulations. I'm going to become endeared to him pretty easily. Same thing goes for like his lovable old man father, played by Max von Sydow. Like, he's gonna be great, obviously. If I can say, there's a lot going on in this movie, a lot of it quite depressing and dour, and I think at a certain point in the 2 hour and 40-minute runtime of this film-ish, it became all just a little too much for me, but en masse, I would say I quite enjoyed this one.
Abram, you can go next. What did you think?
Yeah, I think I feel quite similarly to Tanner. I think one of the aspects of the film that struck me the most is just the aesthetic. I think this is a beautiful film.
Yeah.
I was actually sort of constantly remarking to myself about how well composed a lot of images in the movie are. And I think that there's something very interesting about this this tension between the text of the film and the aesthetics of the film, this very beautiful and almost idyllic natural space that we're capturing against the very oppressive and dour narrative that unfolds in it, which is also probably why there's I think a strong sense of isolation in the visual of the film. You'll quite often have one character sort of alone in these big tracts of land. I think I'm still trying to put my finger on why the movie didn't quite work for me, though. I don't have a particularly strong negative feeling towards it, but I just sort of feel like I lost a lot of momentum maybe around halfway through. I think that it's tricky for me to put my finger on why, though, because I think that there's a way to look at Pelle as being quite propulsive. There's really almost always something happening that is changing some aspect of Pelle's life himself. But there's something to the film that distanced me from it and disengaged me from it, and I want to figure out what that is.
Tucker, what did you think?
Yeah, I think Pelle the Conqueror is very interesting. I think it's very emotional, and you get easily invested given what Tanner mentioned about the characters. It presents very culturally distinct film. The lifestyle that these people have to lead and the ways that they're treated and the people around them, the community that they try to build with the other fellow servants of this farm, I think is very interesting. I think that I don't get too much out of the supporting cast. Given how many people there are, I was surprised that there weren't that the most of these supporting characters don't get a ton of involvement. They each have kind of their own little section, or they come and go a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was hoping, given the given how close in proximity all these characters are and how much they are interacting, I would think I would have wanted a little bit more personality or arcs out of some of these characters. But I do like it on the whole. I think the biggest question mark in my head, as I've watched this movie about 3 days ago and just been thinking about it, I'm like, what is this movie saying about violence? Because this is a very violent movie in just the way that people treat one another, and almost every reaction to almost every situation is something aggressive, ranging from spanking to rape. We get a complete range of violent acts that people just immediately jump towards violence to each other. And the question mark in my mind is, this movie kind of seems to show that violence is the answer in some situations, because violence consistently seems to improve the lives of the people who enact it. And maybe that is the commentary, is just kind of like a dour way to sort of think of things. But I don't know. I think it is. I think it's interesting. I think we'll be able to really dive into the sort of the thematic and textual nature of the movie. But I just found this movie really watchable. I often find these movies that we watch for this show, particularly the Palme d'Or version, to be kind of rote. It's like, all right, yep, it's about another person in a tough situation. But I think Pelle is just a compelling protagonist and feels very different from so many of the other characters that we've seen in this series of films. So I found it surprisingly watchable, given how long it was and how tonally and aesthetically similar it is to so many films that we've watched. I was like, this one really actually seems to stick with me and engage me a little bit more.
Yeah. I would say that the descriptor, my adjective I'm rolling around in my head right now is quaint, but in a good way. I think that this film has a lot of characteristics that I feel it goes quite deep on, that you guys have just barely even scratched the surface. I love a seasonal movie. I love a movie that's very aware of the passing of time and the year. And it's 2 years. We have, fall, summer, winter, and spring, and we get to see this landscape in many different times of the year. And that's difficult to film, and it causes all kinds of logistical real life challenges. But the result of this one is a lot of beautiful landscapes that I was enjoying and that fit into the story. And then the second kind of piece that I think really made this film, as Tucker said, watchable, and I was very surprised myself about how engaged I was with this movie. I would say throughout the first 2 hours, and then the final half hour kind of was dragging a little bit. But the element that surprised me a lot was the kind of comedic element to this film. That there are many parts in which I was horrified and also laughing, and that like you say with the violence, that seems violence begets violence, as we well know, but also that it can be kind of funny, and people that maybe deserve it comes for them eventually.
Are you thinking of potentially one character and something that happens to him in particular?
But I mean, the pendulum swings both ways in this movie, and so I think that those are elements that were really enjoyable to me. And then I'll just toss in right here to get it off the top of my head, because it's right here. I as you guys mentioned, the point of view of this film, I think, is very well done. I think specifically how the film is shot communicates to me that we're really seeing this world and we're learning the story through Pelle's eyes. We are consistently centered in his emotion, and the film is showing us the way that he feels in any given circumstance. And so, I felt very, very close to this young boy character, to see how he would mature and to how this kind of place would change a young boy like that. So I actually really enjoyed this one. I thought it was quite good.
Sure.
Tucker, then, what kind of topic do you want us to start with? A little question for us to think about and answer, mayhaps?
Well, given that I think that the movie's most intriguing point is about its philosophy on violence through many uncomfortable sequences, I'm curious which scene of violence, which scene of an uncomfortable nature stuck with you the most. I think that for me, it was the scene in which Pelle is spanking Rude, the other kid.
With the nettles.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is such an hello, cat.
Hi.
It's such an interesting sequence in that it shows how the violent nature that Lasse, the Pelle's father, has, is being passed down to Pelle, and that he seems to get something out of it, but maybe
you think that
not too much. Like it's a complicated scene where the letting off of steam that he is doing in that moment is clearly something that he has boiling within him, but then he's kind of disturbed by what he did, and it's just this long, very uncomfortable sequence of he's just whipping this kid, as you mentioned, with nettles for in the dynamic between the two of them, basically no reason. There's not even really something he's trying to get from him, or you're not trying to get him to admit something, or not lie to him.
Rude is doing it for money.
Rude's doing it for money, and then Pelle is paying money to do damage to someone else for his own satisfaction. And that scene just it sticks around for a little while. And that one really made me think, and I think it might have been one of the ones that really keyed me into, okay, this movie is about that cycle of violence quite a bit.
Yes, I agree. If I might throw in a couple pieces of why that scene is so interesting. The background of this film, the immigrant background that we briefly touched on, this beginning of the I think, to just go back to the opening real quick, because you say that, well, this scene of the lashing with the nettle is the only monetary transaction we really watch in the film that has any sort of consequence between the characters at all. We know that the characters have left Sweden because of money and because of the death of the mother, and that Lasse is now a widower with this child. And so, but they're like, Denmark is a rich country. We'll be able to get good things. They're thinking about money in the positive way. And soon, quickly, of course, this myth is dispelled. And we know that, well, no, it's not. You have to work hard and live in a cow shed. But the money creates the thing that I think the violence is ultimately based on, which is hierarchy. And that the film, like a movie like The White Ribbon, which I think has a lot to do about hierarchy, and it's a super similar setting, so of course I'm going to remember it. But that the ways in which the violence is passed down from the top level of boss to the underboss to the trainee, or to the foreman to the trainee, and then down to Lasse, and then Lasse down to his kid, and it's the ways in which people have power over each other are the things that lead them to act in these violent ways. The kids at the school act out their violence against Pelle because they feel superior in their blood. It's like a nativism thing, and a xenophobia of a fear and a hatred of the Swedes. And so they beat him. And the trainee doesn't really. There's a couple of moments where we almost upset this status quo too, which I think are my favorite moments of violence in the film. Is we get very close to upsetting the status quo, but we don't go all the way. And the reasons why we don't go all the way are well, there's one scene I think we'll got to talk about it with the well and the rock. But yeah,
if you know, you know.
If you know, you know. The hierarchy that this film is refuses to talk about, but is very clear and leads to the characters beating up on each other.
Why do you say it refuses to talk about it?
The characters themselves don't discuss. It's
Oh, sure.
Yeah. It's a
It's
societal
not
thing.
literally talked
It's
about.
not literally talked about, but I think it's very clearly
Yeah.
understood. And the society that like perpetuates it and creates the foundations for even something like the hierarchy of Lasse going and being with Mrs. Olsen when she maybe is widowed, maybe isn't widowed. And so there then is a hierarchy created there amongst the burgeoning couple and the rest of the society on this island, of which, we're not really shown very much, but me and you guys can fill in the dots pretty clearly about what kind of place this is, given all the other similar movies we've watched and what we know about this like late 19th century time period. I think it's maybe early 1900s even. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I have to say about the scene that you mentioned, Tucker, because I think you also wanted us to maybe bring our own sort of examples of this into it, is that basically sets Ruud on the path that we see him sort of fulfill at some point around the midpoint of the film, in that his goal basically is to run away from the farm and become like a circus freak, for lack of a better term.
That's true.
A geek, I guess they would call it way back in the day.
They'd call that Nightmare Alley, Tanner.
Exactly. And he does. Like Pelle and Lasse go to like the carnival one day, and like they see him performing on stage, and then Ruud and Pelle like hang out. I suppose it's meant to be something of a happy ending for Ruud. I mean, as much of a happy ending as a character maybe gets in this movie, that like he does escape the system and gets into one that is probably at least equally as bad. But we don't see that. We just see him like living out the one goal that he was told he was going to have. Because someone mentions to him that he would only be a circus freak, right? Is that Pelle who tells him that? Some character tells him that.
No, he says he's going to become one.
Yeah, okay. Is that right? Yeah. All right. Okay. I mean, yeah. So the scene you're talking about, Tucker, of him basically taking a punishment for exchange of money is, is a little microcosm of his journey, but also the basic journey that everyone in this film has, is just going through absolute hell for a little bit of money. If I want to talk about a sequence that sticks in my mind, it's not a moment of outright violence, but one of the just some really like dour imagery that sticks in my mind is one of the first times that Pelle is chased out towards that frozen shore, basically, of the ocean, if it is an island, and like all the kids are interrupted bullying him when they pull like a boat of frozen corpses off the lake.
Oh, yeah,
you guys remember that scene?
crazy.
Yeah, off the sea.
Yeah.
And that happened to George Washington in that one painting.
That's true. He froze to death, as we famously learned in history class. But no, like all the like children who were just clamoring and like about to beat up this immigrant kid are just frozen in place as these adults just like hook this little rowboat with a stick and are just unloading frozen bodies, and you see a close-ups of the like the harrowed faces of these corpses. It's pretty affecting, I would say. And it's not the first time that like people are lost to the ocean or to the sea in this film. That happens a number of times, including Kongstrup's son, Niels, also dies in a similar sort of fashion.
Yeah. The size of the ocean is very exaggerated in the narrative, and it feels huge. And obviously at this point in time, it would have been huge. It's no sort of short order getting from one country to the next. But I think that there's this real sense in everything we're talking about, and in a literal way in the ocean, that where you are is where you are. Good luck getting someplace new. And I think that sense of rigidity and sort of lack of options on the horizon is so critical to how our characters live their lives. And then it makes the reveal that Ms. Olsen's husband then his return seems all the more incredulous for the fact that we come to understand the ocean as this thing that simply takes. And I think, what's interesting about all of this in conversation is that I think that Pelle's arc in some way is about wanting to break out of this rigidity and not maybe accept this sort of cyclical and hierarchical violence and social structure that he's put in. I think the scene with the nettles is very interesting to me because I would argue that that sort of shows this moment where Pelle has to confront this power that he could have and maybe realize he doesn't want it. Because bear in mind, the exchange was going to be 100 lashes with the nettles, as hard as Pelle wants to lash Ruud, in exchange for the coin. I think I was like, because I was curious how this was going to be depicted. Are we going to be sitting in this scene here where we're watching him lash his kid 100 times? And I think he lashes him somewhere in the area of like 8 to 10 times.
Not very.
And then he,
I guess,
he runs away.
Mhm.
And there's this interesting, I think this is interesting because I think it is important for understanding the decision to not take on the role of trainee at the end of the film. Because obviously one of the first moments of violence we see that's quite stark is when the trainee sort of sexually assaults and humiliates Pelle by sort of stripping him and whipping him with the help of the other boys, and then having him like be cast into this puddle in embarrassment in front of this crowd.
Yeah, everybody is like pointing and laughing at him.
Yeah, and he is given this opportunity by the end of the film to take on that role and be to the next Pelle as the trainee was to him. But I think we sort of get a taste in that Nettles scene that maybe he's not built for that. And this is an interesting sort of familial thing because, I'm interested in this idea that we might read Lasse as this particularly violent character because he might be permissive of violence, but he's not able to sort of dole it out.
Yeah,
I mean, one of the first moments of real, I think, disillusionment between father and son in the narrative is when Lasse doesn't kill the trainee. And Pelle wants him to. He's watching through the slats in the board. He's ready and he's heartbroken that his father doesn't kill or in some way hurt this boy. And I think this journey that we watch Pelle take to this ultimate decision to reject his place in this rigid order and the violence that it begets is very interesting. And I think you can kind of track that through these key scenes in the whole film.
Yeah. Lasse's relationship to violence is like one of the most interesting elements of this entire movie because it indicates that this desire to do harm is like it's like born in everyone in this movie. It seems like there's almost no one in this movie that either doesn't do violence or doesn't wish violence to be done in some way. And seeing across the course of the movie, Lasse, who is presented as this very determined guy, but not particularly physically capable given his age, that he consistently like wants to be like a younger guy again. He wants to be able to do these things. He wants to be treated as not as an old man, and he also wants to hurt people on many occasions, from major infractions like whipping and publicly shaming his son to smaller things. He's consistently like, I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna show them like they're not gonna mess with me anymore. And like the amount of times that he goes and he just turns like with his tail between his legs paints this picture of a guy who is like bursting at the seams with anger, but does not have the either ability or probably confidence to actually enact that. And it makes the sweeter moments that he has even more like textually interesting because you're like, well, well, like, what is this guy's true self? I mean, maybe it is that he is a really caring father, because we see him do a big caring father many times throughout, but we also consistently see him be like absolutely like chock full of rage. And it's like, maybe like, how performative is it? Maybe he's trying to just like show his son that he can have this energy, but he never actually acts on it. Like, it's this really weird push and pull where it makes him this like gumbo character of like all these different emotions.
I mean, I would argue that everything you just said, Tucker, really lends itself to I'd say the best scene in this movie is his goodbye. And I know we're sort of maybe getting ahead of ourselves here. His goodbye to Pelle at the very end.
I think this encapsulates a lot of what Tucker's talking about in this scene.
Where, like, he realizes that, okay, Pelle is not going to stay here. He's not going to, like, ascend to become the trainee and then maybe the foreman or whatever of this farm. He's leaving. And so I have to, all of a sudden, reckon with, oh man, I hope I prepared him to, like, be a man on his own in the world. And so, and his sort of last act of that is him basically being like, okay, you can have 2 of my shirts, a pair of my socks, and my boots, and like, here's like 2 or 3 pieces of sage wisdom, and you're off. But he does all of this, of course, with like tears in his eyes, and he's obviously trying to keep a lid on his emotions in a lot of ways too, to make sure that like Pelle feels prepared to go make this choice, to strike out on his own effectively. Because maybe Lascia realizes that he's not long for this world. That's peppered across the entire film too, that his memory is going, that happened, that it's, we see that a number of times, that he's like, the time has come, I suppose, maybe earlier than I was hoping or expecting, but Pelle is now going to, my son is going to be a man, and he's going to take on the world on his own, and did I do enough as a father to prepare him for that?
It just like completes, I think, the tragedy of Lasse's character is that the reason why I like that the story's like written perspective is from Pelle so much is that we're not very filled in on backstory for a lot of these so-called side characters. Lasse being maybe the character number 2,
Right.
that we are only really given what is happening right in front of us, and we just kind of have to guess on what the background is. And so a lot of the things that Lasse says makes me kind of think that this is a newer position in his life, and that he has at times known a bit of a higher status, higher class spot on the pecking order, but as a result of being widowed and a result of getting older and maybe not everything going exactly how he wanted in his life, he's now in this, like, he talks about he's just being quite sad that he's old and poor, and so that clouds and that kind of where was I going this with? Well, that is like a really tragic note for his character to exist from the very beginning. I mean, it's, I think, the very first scene when we're on the boat and he's like reassuring about what the scene. I mean, it's just like immediately I get the idea of Lasse as this a man who really wants a lot for his son and is really driven to do almost everything in his life because it's for the better of his son. And so then when he has to come around to that conclusion at the end of the film that he doesn't feel like he can travel, be that because of his physical health or just, he's emotionally not there, not able to, it takes yet another huge amount of change. I find that to just be really tragic and really sad, that I feel really, really bad for Lasse's character. I mean, society has changed a lot so that people don't have to go through that in their older part of life.
Yeah, I think there's a moment right before their final goodbye that is haunting to me. It's when he's facing the corner and crying, and Pelle asks him why he's crying, and he says, as you guys are saying, I can't leave, I can't travel. I think that there's this disillusionment that we see with this immigrant story that you mentioned at the beginning there, Timo. In these opening minutes, there's this vision of a better life, not only for Pelle, but I would argue just for himself. He's very interested in this Sunday morning, lazy in bed, getting brought coffee by a new wife, and he can't have that. He can't find that. And there are these moments that I think make him look so helpless and so unprepared, and they're quite sad. I think about I think a beautifully performed scene from Max von Sydow is when he's trying to recollect the names of the, what do you call them, the sages?
I
That's
think
from Zelda. I don't know what they're
the
called.
prophets is what they say in the film. The
Okay,
subtitles
because
say prophets.
they're not
They're
like the
angels,
disciples
aren't
because they only say 5 names. I thought they were
prophets,
trying to do the
correct.
disciples. Okay, prophets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's trying to recall them, and he can get 2, and he's talking about how it's just, his brain's a little slow and he can't get
I
them,
mean,
and there's this
that scene, yeah.
yeah,
So-
there's this dissonance between them where, he's watching Pelle get this knowledge and this opportunity that he wishes he had. But I think part of what's interesting about the depth of his character is that I don't think he's simply just happy for his son. I think he feels a little like he can't measure up. Like it's a little embarrassing that he can't remember those other names, that his son is the one that sits him down and opens the book and teaches him the letters and all of this stuff. He's been surpassed by his son and he's been left behind, but not solely in the way that parents want to be left behind by their kids. He's been made to look weak.
It is a really good. I just want to jump on the thing of you saying that it's very well performed by von Sydow, because if you've ever dealt with like an older relative or anyone like that who was having like memory recall issues, the degree to which they will try to cover for themselves will be like, oh yeah, I was gonna get that, or like, oh yeah, I got like the first letter of that guy's name right, or whatever. Like the reason where they refuse to almost like cede that like, yeah, I just didn't have it, like, and that's understandable. That's a human thing, but the degree to which von Sydow nails the like fading memory of an older person and them coping with that, especially when they're talking to their child, someone who was reliant on them until very recently and still is to a degree. He hits those notes so perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that seems also to the point you're making of him like maybe feeling left behind or like maybe embarrassed in front of his son. I mean, we also do see Pelle's confidence and his cockiness, I would say, kind of grow over the course of the movie. Because
Certainly.
in that scene, he's kind of like, come on, Dad.
Old man. Yeah.
Like, you should know this. Like he's a little bit thick-headed about it.
Yeah, well, he's frustrated. I think that's the thing for me about like how dickish can children be. I think they can be very dickish, but do they understand what they are being like? No, they don't. They don't get it. I mean, why they're acting that way.
For Pelle, it's like sort of like the other side of the coin of what I was just talking about with von Sydow's performance. For Pelle as the character, it is maybe the first moment where he realizes it clicks for him. It's like, come on, like I know this, and my dad, who is supposed to know everything about the world up into in my experience, my lived experience, like he was the source of information about everything that goes on, like, and I know something that he doesn't, and it is that dynamic, especially even with when they're in that's like school test thing when Pelle has to like recite. He has to recite a Bible verse and then like answer critical questions about it. Or no, it's not a Bible verse.
It's a Bible verse. Or
they ask him what
the
serpent says to Adam and Eve or something.
And then they ask him like, what is a limb? Like, so they're doing both. They're doing like theological sort of schooling, and then also like basic facts of the world stuff tied into that. Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the theological is a basic fact of the world, so
Oh well, of course, my mistake. Thank you.
What do you make of the death of the teacher?
A moment.
I mean, that is
a hilariously dark moment in this movie. I mean, just like think about it. Okay, I think it's just like it's like the film is skewering our education here because
a little bit of a torment. If I can do a little Palme d'Or reference there
on the Palme d'Or show. No way. This like ossified ancient teacher who has this like terrible method of teaching that clearly like leaves Pelle just high and dry. When this first day, he's like, man, I don't know what you guys are doing. And they're like, pee pa po pay, and then on a more serious note, I think like it's a funny moment. You like see him up there and you're like, oh, he's dead. Oh, he's
Yeah,
dead.
he's
And
definitely
you just
dead.
get like a couple of moments where we know before the children realize. But then it makes me go after the falls down and we cut to the kids and they have this like very shocked look. I'm just like the prevalence of death in this society is still pretty high, and
Yeah.
that we like even as children. I mean, I can count. It's like it's a good number of times that we have people come very close to death, all the way to death, go to funerals. It's a
Well,
thing that they're dealing with.
It is far different than that, though. I mean, these kids are encountering a dead body before anybody else. That like at a funeral or a wake or whatever, when you're a kid, you're like, well, this is frightening, and I don't really understand this, but it's being presented to me in a very like low key, peaceful, controlled setting where
Mhm.
there's mourning going on. There are adults all around me who have a better grasp of this, most likely. This is like, la 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 la, we're having a school day. La, the teacher's kind of quiet today. Anyway, smack his heads on his faces into the desk, and they're like, what? I think he's dead. I mean, and these kids, as you mentioned, have probably seen a dead body before in their time already, but it is still...
we know that some of them did because we watched them watch all those ice corpses come in.
True, very true.
Yeah. Interesting scene.
I mean, well, go ahead if you have something very relevant, but it makes me think we ought to talk about the scene during Harvest with the old well and the rock, like I was.
Okay, yes. Well, we can talk about like the lead up to that and this sort of side character stuff, because this is a long film, and credit to it, I think it's also quite plotty. There's a lot of like at least events that happen in this movie, and
Sure.
some of them become...
It's almost like there's a collection of all these vignettes and little scenes, and because we are viewing it through Pelle's eyes, like he only gets the little bits that he sees, and so we only get the action of these side stories that are complete. I mean, you could make a whole story about the lovers about Nils and Anna. I mean, that's that's just like a full movie right
I was
there.
literally like, my exact thought, Timo. I was like, this is a movie unto itself. Like, the cameraman could just decide to follow Niels and Anna, and that is an entire movie right there.
But we don't, and we
that's how
only
movies work.
we just get the tiny little bit that Pelle sees, and that's the same for all these other like side stories. And I like this. I like this technique because it feels very real. It feels very authentic to like how you live life and how you learn about the crazy things happen in people's life, and you only know like you see it happen, and then months later you actually find out all the details. And you're like, I had no clue. So
yeah,
yes.
You want to talk about Eric though?
Yes, this Eric character I think is another one of these tragic characters, but I think I like him a lot as a character. This kind of, he is a fellow Swede, but he's a young guy, and so he's a higher up on the totem pole, but he's not as high as the Danes on the totem pole because they're supremacists. But then his kind of,
he's defiant.
He's defiant.
He's still looked down upon, of course, by all the Swedes and the foremen especially.
But his limit of shit taking is much lower than Lasse's. He's gonna explode before Lasse does.
His level is his limit of shit taking, but also his ability to act upon the revenge that he wants to enact. He has the same like confidence and desire as Lasse, but he actually he's at a place on the totem pole where he can push back a little bit.
And he has, I think the first time we're introduced to him is when they're like just like scooping up some like hay or straw or
There's
something.
Some like
him and Pelle.
looks between Pelle and the kind of like, oh, like what up, my Swedish brother kind of looks, and then like,
well, he's that's where we get the sort of the allusion to the title of the film is him talking about like how he's going to earn his way out of here, and he's going to travel to China and America and a third place that I'm not going to mention,
which we would colloquially nowadays call Africa.
Yes,
colloquially.
Yeah. But he's like, and I'm going to conquer all of this. Like, he has all this grand ideation and ambition that is living in Pelle to some extent, and is sort of like passed on to him after this first encounter with Eric. And Timo, do you want to take sort of the take handle of the scene
yes.
that leads
Well,
up
first,
to
we
the well,
fir-
as you were saying?
First, we're at Christmas, and old Eric
sure.
is rather unhappy that they are feeding them stingy herring for Christmas dinner again, and he gets
Yes.
all pissed off. He gets all angry, so he walks outside, refuses the food, and just plays his accordion anyway, much
Mhm.
to the delight of all the other farm workers.
Yes.
But it sets up a good amount of antagonism in which Eric and the foreman do not get along. They are not friends together. And so then later on, I guess, how exactly does that timing work? Because I would be like, I thought this was a holiday celebration where they were complaining, but then it's like,
I think
maybe
it's sometime later, certainly, that
Yeah.
he just sort of continues to put up with this until the breaking point
Maybe
when
it's-
they're harvesting wheat or
it's
something.
Yeah, it's a whole nother year later, and it's the harvest time. And the foreman does not allow for Eric to have a little break when everybody else does. And so once again, Eric gets all pissed off, but this time Eric's wielding a scythe. And so after the foreman
Yes,
goes
he's
back,
got a weapon in his hands.
and so does everybody else actually too.
Mhm.
And so once the foreman leaves the area, they all pack up the scythes, and in a classic mob scene, we got the pitchforks and the farmers. They go, and so Eric starts attacking the foreman until suddenly he puts himself in a strategically disadvantageous position when the
Definitely.
previously established Chekhov's well comes in for the
Yes.
strike. Previously, in the Anna and Nils love story, we're seeing that this contraption of a well functions in a very specific way, and if you unhook the bucket, it'll go flinging it like a
a
trebuchet.
giant rock comes swinging down in the opposite direction.
And
So
then
ridiculously precarious.
in this
Yes.
very like telegraphed scene where we're like, Nils, or what's his name, Eric, I don't think you should be standing right there, Eric, get out of there.
Yeah.
The rock comes in and bonks him with a humongous thud that
Little rock in a hard place, literally, between his head in between the wood
rock
post
and
and
the
the
post.
giant boulder.
Yeah. And so then the net of it is a tragic beat for yet another character. Is Eric does not get his dream to go to America, which is kind of the founding dream of Pelle. And then he doesn't get to go there. He is lobotomized effectively and is turned into like a servant. And
he doesn't really. He's lost the ability to talk, and he mostly just like stays in the stable, like looking out a window. It seems. But he like will follow you if you like tell him to, and he mostly just is there for like grunt work. Like we see him at one point like hoisting up a carriage or whatever so they can fix a wheel on it or something. So
Yeah.
I thought that he died. I was
I
like,
thought
oh shit, that
he's
character
dead.
is dead.
Yeah.
But then you see him later and he's just like staring out a window. It's like, oh shit, he's alive. That is like a lot more depressing in some ways.
A lot more depressing.
Especially because now the foreman can just treat him however he likes, and Eric can't do anything about it.
And the
Yeah,
symbol
but we
of
also
resistance
never
is gone
see.
because the other farm workers are like unable to push back in the way that Eric was.
That's true. But the other interesting thing about once Eric becomes disabled is that they treat him pretty good, all things considered. Like they're not like still picking on him. We don't see the foreman. Like the foreman's like kind of taking care of him.
Well, I would
it's-
say it seems pretty
it's an-
passive aggressive when he's like, "Come along now, Eric. Here, why don't we put your little vest on, buddy?" He was like, "This is so degrading for Eric."
Sure, but also what he's presented as in terms of his ability to communicate and understand things, I think the movie presents it as that his mental state is returned to like a childlike mental level, and like he can't like it is degrading at him, but I don't know if it's intended to be degrading because I think it's like that's kind of the levels he's at after the accident. But it's a really interesting like twist for that character, and like the role of like the community in this movie is like the texture has changed a little bit by the fact that I honestly even though I think I also agree that I thought he died. And then I was thinking like, okay, all right, he got bonked real hard, but it's not like it's not. I mean, it is all life altering, but I expected that he would be like out in the streets. Like regardless, he had the infraction, they get rid of him. They do keep him around. They use him for grunt work, but they do take care of him. I don't know. It's this really texturally interesting interaction, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because to me, I actually read it as quite simple. I read it as the foreman got exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
he becomes a
fair
mindless worker at this
Yeah.
point, basically.
And you don't have to pay him, probably.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that this is there's something interesting to me already about how Eric is situated in the narrative, because he sort of complicates this immigrant story to where often when you see the immigrant story sort of brought to film, it's a story of immigrating to one place and making your life in that place. But this is a story wherein we're looking to again leave Denmark and arrive in America. So there's this sort of notion that this initial immigration is sort of tied to this idealized potential future that didn't come to pass. So we're going to leave yet again. And I think that sort of gives characters like Eric and Pelle an interesting relationship to the land and relationship to this place, because they don't sort of have maybe this desire or reverence for acceptance or position in Denmark. They have a desire again to leave and go somewhere else. So I think having his accident is interesting, because I think on one hand it sort of galvanizes that in Pelle, because he doesn't sort of then become placated. He doesn't sort of back away from his ambitions there. He still wants to leave, very much so. But at the same time, it also sort of reaffirms this rigidity that we're speaking about in the hierarchy of this world, because it seems like even these moments of intense transgression can't sort of unstick the way that this place operates. Because I'm thinking about this scene
They
and
even
how
call it
all of
the place.
yeah, all of these other laborers who are going to participate in some kind of workers' revolution immediately after the accident are right back to following the guide of the foreman. We don't see any real punitive measures unfold on the people after that fact. And I tie this quite closely to, I think, probably the most disturbing plotline of the film, which is we come to learn that Kongström has raped the niece of his wife.
Yes.
And that leads to his wife castrating him violently.
This is quite a sequence. This is, I mean, when we start with the niece and how do you say his name? Kongstrup getting together, sort of.
Come on, Timo, that's a name that you should be saying all the time. It's given the kind of
legally change your name
they're
to
going to be calling,
if you could, please.
Please, no, I don't want to be associated with this guy.
I want us to get into the mechanics of this, but just the reason I raise it is because I think that and this accident that happens to
Eric
reaffirms the way that this place exists stuck. Because even after we come to learn that the head of this operation is this rapist and that he gets castrated, nothing really changes. Even the relationship between the two persists as usual. And so I think that it's interesting, and we can now I think we can get into the details of that plotline.
I got one bullet point, because it's important to the story of what we were just talking about, and because Tucker mentioned it. Eric does get thrown out. It's at the very end of the movie. It's what motivates. It's what motivates Pelle to basically run away. He's like, this fucking place, like this guy who is, as Abram points out, exactly what the foreman and the owners would want. A guy who they don't need to pay and will just follow orders because he's not, he is
brain dead,
handicapped, brain dead to some extent. Like, he's being thrown out because what? They don't want to feed him anymore? That is what really is like, okay, Pelle is done.
This place sucks.
This place sucks. And it sucks to the extent, for the reasons Abram just laid out with the Kongstrup, and then Sime is the young woman's name who comes to live with them. And then there is this the scene where, like, Kongstrup is, like, walking around on stilts and kind of maybe trying to flirt with her.
Trying to?
And then... Well, he is. She seems to be, like, lightly entertained by his advances, at least at first. And then after it's during the carnival is when we see the aftermath of his rape of Sime. And it is all seen basically from afar on a hill by this other woman whom Kongstrup at some point in the past also raped, and she has one of his children, Brood, is her son, their son together, basically. Who she will often come by the manor and like yell at him.
She's
being
an
like,
awesome
hey,
character.
I have your fucking son, idiot. Come fucking take care of him. And so she sees this.
It's give me money to take care of.
Give me fair enough, whatever.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I think that that plot line is one that I'm conflicted on. I think it makes a lot of sense in the context of this being a society of misogyny, as we see plenty of, being a society of violence, as we see plenty of. But the conflict that I have is that I wish that both of those characters, Kongstrup and Sime, they feel like characters that deserve more characterization before that happens. But we see Sime show up, and maybe she's in like a shot or two otherwise, but like that scene with the short scene with the stilts. But I want to know a little more about her. Like, what is her backstory? What is this dynamic like? Like, how does she interact with her aunt? Like, what role is she serving with the other members of the farm family and stuff like that?
Largely exists to be a victim in the story. You're right.
Yeah. And because when she shows up, it feels like something that might be a plot turning moment. Maybe there's someone more around Pelle's age that he can talk to. Maybe it's a potential love interest. Maybe the class differences between them will teach them something about. Like, if this movie feels like it sets up a couple of characters that ultimately it doesn't do a particular large amount with, and they more serve as catalysts for. Even with Eric, who I do think is a much more developed side character. I'm like, he's actually one that, to this point, I was like surprised when they had that like big interaction where it's like, oh, you can come with me, and I'm like, have I seen this guy before? Like, what is their dynamic? Like, why are they so buddy in this scenario? Like, there's so many characters that people start getting lost in the shuffle, and so when they are then highlighted in like an important sequence, I end up feeling like kind of surprised that the movie has its tendrils and its plot lines in so many different areas, when I feel like a little more focus might better serve the plot lines if it was pared down, we could focus a little bit more on making the plot lines feel like they were led up to a little bit better.
To that end, I think it's worth pointing out that this is an adaptation of a novel from 1910, which feels like an adaptation thing. That each of these characters, these plot lines would get their dedicated like chunk of chapters in a book. And then we have to pare all these things down and get as much of it into this long movie. No, albeit, but
And for my money, our focus isn't on these characters. It's on how Pelle views them and how they're everything that they do, influences him and impacts him. It's not about them.
Yeah, and so maybe it's like the fact that he is a pretty isolated person. That's why we don't get too particularly close to the characters, and that's a good enough reason.
Yeah. And we also cut a lot of time. Like, the movie takes place over 2 years, and it's only 2 hours.
It jumps
long,
around a lot.
Do you happen to know, Tanner, if the novel covers his whole life or more of his life than the film does?
I couldn't tell you. The only reason I knew it was based on a novel is because I read that the young boy, the actor, well, the credits, of course, a young boy named Pelle, who plays the character Pelle, is named after the novel's character Pelle.
Oh,
yes.
So pretty interesting.
But what I did, I don't have a ton of details about this, but I recall reading is that the book is like a classic epic where it is about Pelle's entire life. And that this movie was specifically about his childhood before he heads off. And so we get that shot of him like walking towards the ocean. I'm like, where are you going, buddy?
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's just the
What's
ocean.
the plan?
The reason I ask, I didn't look into it at all, but I was watching this. I'm like, this is a piece of, and let's allow me to use one of the only things I learned from the brief period of time I pretended to be an English major.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, this is a portion of a bildungsroman.
Yeah,
this is a portion of a
That one
very
goes right over my head.
That's okay. It's a type of classical novel that like Charles Dickens wrote a lot of, that sort of
See,
follows the exploits of a young boy throughout their entire life, and often it's full of these sort of adventures that this film either shows or alludes to, or you would imagine is happening in the time we don't see. And I think a problem I've always had with that type of storytelling, and you're reading a Charles Dickens novel in this tradition, and you're looking at a very, 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 very long book. I think that it becomes so concerned with plot that you kind of lose a little bit of something. It's sort of becoming it's often sometimes written episodically. And, by taking a story like that and sort of trimming and hand selecting, as this film does portions of it to tell a more contained narrative, I think you sort of avoid some of the issues of that type of storytelling. But I don't really know if you avoid all of them, because I kind of find myself, and maybe part of my disconnect from this ultimately is sort of where this material stems from, but this sort of sense that we're kind of just watching these chapters unfold in Pelle's life, and there's this like intentional sense of the narrative being inert, but there's also just this frustration as a viewer that it is. I kind of found myself wanting to see a sequel to see, okay, what's Pelle's life like in America, which as you're reading that novel, as you get to that portion, you have all this context. I'm sure it becomes richer for it. But I sort of feel, and maybe this is just actually a point of praise of the film's ability to characterize Pelle, but I think in his tension to want to leave, in his desire to be somewhere else, I find myself as the viewer feeling that too, but not always positively. I kind of find myself wanting for what's next, and this film is paced in a very deliberate way to where that next, the possibility of it is the conclusion to the story, not the start of the next 400 pages of material. So I don't know if that's resonating with you guys, but I kind of think that there's something in the structure of the story that was not hooking me entirely.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the reason I would disagree is that, and not that I wouldn't wish to see more. Not that there aren't plot lines that I do feel like could have been explored more, and maybe in a longer version of this story. But I think what makes this movie unique to me is how much it is about from a child's perspective. Like, that is, if this was about a 19-year-old guy and his dynamic as a poor worker on a farm, we've reviewed a couple movies that are exactly that. And so what I think made me continually interested in it is seeing this very tough lifestyle on a very hardy little boy. Like, he's focused, he's diligent, he's doing this, he's going through all these tough times. And I also played it kind of in my head in conversation with Padre Padrone, a movie that we reviewed a couple of weeks ago. That is similar in its story about someone who is not well off and who works as a farm, and the opposite is that his father really doesn't like him in that movie. This is maybe like one of the best father-son dynamics we've seen in this whole series. But part of, on the opposite side, why I actually like Padre Padrone a lot less is that we never spent enough time in one time period. And so then we get these like jumps, and I'm like, that's like basically a completely different guy. There's it's two sides of the coin where Padre Padrone, I think, also probably, if I'm recalling correctly, it's also an adaptation in a similar vein where it's like someone's entire life, and this is that as well. But it's like if we stretch the first 30 minutes of Padre Padrone where he's on where he's like running around in the muddy fields, actually quite similarly, if we stretch that out to 2.5 hours. It's a different kind of storytelling, but the two movies both have aspects that I wish the other one had. But I don't know.
On the point, we mentioned that Kongstroop gets castrated, right? We said that
Yes.
already,
Yes,
just to close the loop
Yes.
on that.
I gotta. Yeah.
Yeah.
The editing on this sequence in which we go from
Listen, it's incredible.
it's
the
so
camera
good.
move of like it's almost like a handy cam like pushing as everybody
yeah,
on the
yeah,
farm
yeah.
like rushes into the manor on the front door.
He's been cut. We can hear
been
him
cut,
wailing.
okay.
This is like a thing that we set up that the mistress like wails really loudly when she's sad, and that everybody on the farm can hear it. And so then when the Kongstroop is screaming loudly in the house, we can hear it out in the courtyard, and we're like, "What's going on? He's moaning like something." And oh, talk about a little body horror, fellas.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Guess what he deserves though. And then the next time we
It's
see him,
pretty much what he
he's
deserves.
like laid up on the couch, and he's got a little blanket over him, and he's like reading a book, and
Eating
then
cookies.
He's eating cookies, and like his wife is doing a lot of the negotiating with Lasse and Pelle in that moment, because they go to her after he beats the shit out of the priest kid for like talking shit on his dad, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we'll see what we can do about that," and yeah, for sure. And he's just kind of like chuckling in the background as she says or they say something funny, I think.
He's laughing
is,
at
like,
them though. He even in
good
his
point.
infertile and pained and sickly position, he still thinks he's better than them.
Yeah.
He's laughing at the remark that led Pelle to beat up the priest kid.
That's right. Thank you. I couldn't quite remember what he was laughing
he's
at.
laughing at the worst possible thing he could choose to laugh at in that moment.
Other things that I want to hit, because it is such a plotty movie, and I don't know if there's a lot to be mined out of it, but just things that I found entertaining. I like that Lasse is still like a horned up old dude, and that he meets an old woman who matches his freak.
Yeah,
I like that, Mrs. Olsen.
Hey, baby.
Dude, their flirting scene is so weird.
Yeah.
They show up, they meet for the first time, and they're like, "Oh yes, this would be lovely, wouldn't it?" And then they just fucking bone like 1 minute later.
It's pragmatic. They're old.
It is.
Yeah,
They're old.
Yeah,
they live in Denmark. Like what would you expect?
But I love that Lasse is there, and he's almost like, well, I have to do the little courtship thing. We're both old. I don't know if she's gonna be into it. And she's just like, well, you gonna kiss me, or like,
we gonna get started,
and
or
then
not?
she like slips into like her nightgown or whatever, and then like lays in bed and is like looking at him like, come on, man. And he's like, oh, I have my son back at the farm, but what the hell, why not? And so and they sleep together, and then he goes back to the farm, and Pelle's like passed out on the ground from something. I don't really remember what, but
Because he's
like,
sad.
Staying up.
Yeah, he's like unhappy about his father not being there.
Well, fair enough. Nils and Anna is also a plot line that I think we mentioned it and talked about it a little bit. But I just want to shout out the scene that Pelle has with Nils, where he's like, dude, don't take the because he says the baby's body is under that pile of rocks, right? That's right. And Nils is like, no, like I saw them at the graveyard or whatever. He's like, no, man, it's under the rocks. I've seen its spirit or whatever he says, like floating above or burning above the rocks.
Yeah, a very
just
poetic
pretty
line.
heavy stuff.
Yeah. And then Nils goes and saves 5 lives so that he can kill himself.
Exactly.
Tough.
Other plot points that you guys wanted to quickly shout out, or should we move to wrap up here?
I think that's
Give it a score.
Let's move
pretty much all.
Okay.
Yeah, let's
I'll
groove.
do the palm details in the meantime. So this is on IMDb and Letterboxd and everything as a 1987 film, and it did release in Denmark and Sweden in 1987, but it was at the 1988 Cannes Film Festival. Not really sure what happened there, but irregardless,
It won.
It won. It was the sole winner at the 1988 Cannes Film Festival. Oh shit! I was gonna look up who this person was. Give me 1 second. Does anyone know the name Ettore Scola?
No.
Ettore Scola.
No.
He was the jury president this year. He's the director of, it seems, A Special Day. I've heard of that. A couple other like Italian films that are well known, but we digress here over here.
Yeah, Italian, huh?
Let's see. Claude Berry was also on the jury this year, representing France. And here's a name that we'll all recognize. A little guy by the name of George Miller was on the.
George Millet.
Yeah, yes, George Miller. George Miller of Australia was there.
Oh, that's right.
Of the 20 other films in competition were Bird from Clint Eastwood, his sort of jazz biopic, and then Chocolat by Claire Denis.
Oh, sure.
Okay. Well, time to put our scores in. You guys, mine's already there, so you guys got to punch it in, and then we will find out. Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. Oh baby. Okay, looks like we have a 7.9 for Pelle the Conqueror. 7.9 is a little bit around. Is exactly what we gave the film last week, if you paid attention to the beginning of the episode. So we've got another debate to decide.
You'd have to have a really good memory to listen to an hour-long conversation to remember that stupid number from the beginning.
The Ballad of Narayama, Rosetta, Pelle the Conqueror. Those are our 7.9s. Who is going to vote first for Pelle the Conqueror to go above the Ballad of Narayama?
I'll stick my guns from last time unless I need to abandon them again.
I'm voting for it to go above.
You're voting for it to go above? Pelle above? Abram?
Below.
Tucker voted above. Tanner?
I was also.
I love it coming down to Tanner. God, that's my favorite thing to happen.
Hey, we can give it another shot. Let's see if the audience can break this tie.
Well, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that last time, aren't we? But then we decided that maybe not enough people had seen the films. Is there anybody that's willing to?
This is a bigger film.
Crossfire.
Well, here's a question: who would put it above Rosetta as well?
I would also put it above Rosetta. Yeah.
Okay.
I would put it above both.
We can place it above Narayama and below Rosetta. If that seems amenable to everybody.
Sure.
I'll acquiesce to that.
He acquiesces. He agrees to it. No need to get the nettle switches out for Abram.
Oh, good.
Yet.
I wasn't even gonna give him like 100. What do they use?
100 lashings.
Yeah, 50 or.
They use nettle lashings as currency.
Tanner.
It's currency. Oh yeah, the krona.
There
we have it. So Pelle the Conqueror is going at spot number 23 on the list, below last week's film Rosetta, 22. There we have it, 7.9. That's a beautiful number, I'd say.
I would.
Alrighty. Let's move on to the next segment of the hit parade here. Spinning the wheel.
The hit parade. I like that.
You never heard about the hit parade?
Maybe in passing, but I mean, here's a hit for you. Wheel, what's your deal? Give us a movie that makes us squeal. Is it on digital or is it on real? Wheel, what is your deal?
The wheel deal. And after about a minute of spinning, number 15 is the wheel's deal. What movie is number 15 gonna be?
Number 15.
Great. I mean, we're all thinking it, so thanks for saying it out loud.
Yeah, we were, weren't we?
Number 15 comes to us from the land of, hey, we were just talking about it. Well, actually, no, sorry. I thought it was a French film, but no, it is a Spanish film from the country of España, from a quite famous Spanish filmmaker. I'll run down the cast here a little bit for you. Starring Fernando Rey, Francisco Rabal, and Silvia Pinal. This is from the year 1961. From director Louis Buñuel. This is Viridiana.
Cool.
Yes. Available on the Criterion Channel streaming service for your viewing pleasure at a tight 90 minutes. It's got quite a long plot summary, but I can do a couple sentences maybe. Viridiana is preparing to start her life as a nun when she is sent, somewhat unwillingly, to visit her aging uncle, Don Jaime, or Jaime, probably. He supports her, but the two have met only once. Jaime thinks Viridiana resembles his dead wife. Viridiana has secretly despised this man all of her life and finds her worst fears proven when Jaime grows determined to seduce his pure niece. Oh my!
Yeah,
maybe a little too much plot there in the plot description, but who knows what happens after that?
Who knows? And it's a Buñuel film, so we can be sure that some things will definitely happen.
Yes. Buñuel, a celebrated filmmaker whose films I like, of the ones that I have seen, but I'm not like I'm not over the moon about any of his films in particular, I would say.
Yeah. I have seen this movie. I don't remember dick diddles about it though. So
well, Tucker, you don't have it rated on Letterboxd.
Oh, maybe
and did you really see it?
Yeah.
Well, maybe I just actually didn't watch it. That's also possible. I thought I saw it though.
Lying for clout.
Damn,
When you're just
caught.
gonna watch it next week anyway.
Alrighty,
No,
well-
I'm probably getting it mixed up with the
Another
obscure
one?
object of desire.
Sure.
No,
sure.
no, I watched Tristania. Another Louis Buñuel movie.
Well, you
a
should
young
name
woman,
these movies a little differently, shouldn't you?
a young woman taken under the guardianship of Don Lope.
Oh, another Don. Oh, all right.
Don Jamie.
Yeah.
Don Jamie.
Don't cheat you.
Don't cheat you. All right.
That's never gonna get old. This show never gets old. Let's wrap it up. We're gonna talk about Buñuel next time. I thank you guys for talking about this Bille August film, Pelle the Conqueror. I'm gonna take any chance I get to say something real funny, like so. You just get ready for
You want to do one less Kong Stroop for the road?
Gongstrup.
Sure, buddy.
Very good.
Yep. Alrighty. We'll be back next time. Happy holidays. It's about Thanksgiving if you're watching in present time. So enjoy some time with your family if you get that.
They're not. This goes up after that.
It's the holidays. I want our viewers to be well and merry, Tucker. Just let them be happy.
I don't.
Okay. He wants the worst. Well,
I wish pain. I wish out thousands of nettle lashings upon each and every watcher. of
No,
this
don't do
video.
that.
you can get 50 kroner for that, aka 40 cents or whatever. I digress. We've rambled on too long. Stay cool. Keep warm. Peace.